All right. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So, yes, today I'm excited to share some research that I've been doing with terns and plovers on the Platte River. Let's see, make sure my slide's up and running. Okay. So yes, I'm going to share a little bit more detail about this using trail cams and cellular video cameras at these tern and plover nests. So terns and plovers are small shorebirds that nest on bare sand and gravel surfaces. So as you can see, their chicks and eggs are pretty well camouflaged, which offers some protection from predators. Least terns specifically, they fish for their food. So they feed the minnows to their chicks until they're able to fly and fish on their own. These small birds are very loud and very protective of nests and chicks when they feel threatened. Their incubation typically lasts 21 days, and they were listed as endangered since 1985, but they were federally delisted in February of this year. So that's great news for the terns. For piping plovers, they eat insects, so they forage along the shorelines, and their chicks are mobile within a couple days of hatching and begin foraging along the shorelines with the adults as well. Their incubation typically lasts around 28 days, and they have been listed as threatened since 1986. So with this slide, you can see the North and South Platte River basins in Wyoming and Colorado that join together near the city of North Platte in Nebraska. And from there, it forms the Central Platte River. So because of natural issues and human development that occurred on the Central Platte River, the states of Wyoming, Colorado, and Nebraska, and also the Department of Interior, entered into an agreement in 1997 to form the Platte River Recovery Implementation Program. This program was constructed to conserve threatened and endangered species habitat within the associated habitat reach, which encompasses a 90-mile stretch of the Central Platte River from Lexington to Chapman. So both species migrate to the Central Platte in Nebraska in late April to nest. So since 2017, they have been selecting off-channel sand and gravel mines along the Central Platte just because river conditions have not been suitable. So I'll move this. There we go. Sorry. So PRIP provides the suitable nesting habitat by implementing a method called mechanical creation and maintenance to create and restore off-channel nesting habitat. So the finished product is typically referred to as nesting peninsulas, and they are constructed of sand and gravel sediment with sparse to almost no vegetation on them, just because this is what terns and plovers prefer to nest on. So the top photo is an example of a nesting peninsula, and the top or in the photos below are just examples of the machinery and mining used to create these nesting peninsulas. These peninsulas are very appealing to these birds just because of their structure, and they do offer some security from predators. And so PRIP implements several management techniques to help protect them while nesting. So this is another example of one of our off-channel nesting sites, which is called Dyer. So several management techniques are implemented to help reduce the possibility of mammalian predators from advancing onto these peninsulas. So as you can see, each peninsula has one land bridge that connects it to the mainland, and then also a moat that surrounds those peninsulas, which is at least 30 meters wide. The nesting peninsula entrances either have a permanent or temporary electrified fence installed. So you can see in that dashed black line is an example of where a fence would be placed there. And then all of the permanent fencing has an electrified wire running on top of the fence. We also use panel wings that are positioned on the ends of the predator fence that extend 1 to 2 meters into the water. And this is just to kind of add an extra barrier to hopefully deter any mammalian predators that may swim around from the mainland. And an example of that is those yellow lines into the water. So USDA APHIS trapping and removal of mammalian animals around the sites is also performed to reduce the number of potential mammalian predators. So in this photo, you can see that one of our panel wings is attached to the permanent predator fence. And then also there's a couple different types of traps that USDA APHIS uses. So you can see there's a cage trap and then also a foothold trap. So to reduce possible avian predator presence at these nesting sites, any trees located on the program property within 150-meter radius of the nesting peninsula moats are removed. And we also use avian spikes on any stationary objects that could be a possible avian perch as well. So low fledge ratios in 2018 and 2019 and several unknown outcome fates of nests and broods led us to investigate the role of predation in reducing the tern and plover reproductive output at these nesting sites. So for predator camera monitoring, cameras were used to investigate and capture nest predation events. So in this photo right here is an example of a nest camera photo. And you can see there's one adult plover up close to the camera. And then in the background is the other adult sitting on a couple of eggs, and then two newly hatched chicks are nearby that nest as well. So Bushnell Core DS trail cameras and Arlo cellular video cameras were used at nests. Nest cameras were distributed between 6 off-channel nesting sites within the Central Platte. So from left to right, they were Dyer, Cottonwood Ranch, Broadfoot South, Newark West, Newark East, and Lehman. So the nest cameras were placed at a density of 1 nest camera every 2 acres, which just corresponds to our historical plover nesting density. So overall, 44 cameras monitored 56 nests. Ranging from 1 to 10 nests per site. So of those nests, 26 were tern nest and 30 were plover nest. So this resulted in a combined effort of 653 camera days across all sites. So that gave us a range of 15 to 239 camera days per site. And I also want to point out that nest camera days was the number of days a camera monitored an active nest. So as long as adults were tending that nest and eggs or chicks were present, then it was an active nest. So during the 2021 season, trail cameras were placed at both tern and plover nests to capture predator presence and hopefully capture the predation events. So because the camera's capabilities and species, the distance the camera was placed from nests varied between 5 feet to 7 feet. So plovers are way more tolerant of these cameras, where terns become very territorial to the cameras if they are placed too close to the nest. So cameras for plover nests were placed a little bit closer, and then those tern nests, they were placed a little bit further away. So we purchased 6 of the Arlo cellular cameras and tested their feasibility and compared the information we received from them to the trail cameras. So these 6 nesting sites were allotted 1 Arlo camera for the season. So once a plover nest failed or hatched, the camera was moved to the next available plover nest. So we wanted to ensure that these Arlo cams were well camouflaged so the plovers felt comfortable, and also reduce the risk of being a predator attractant. So on the left-hand side, you can just see an example of what those Arlo cam setups looked like close up, and then also kind of from a distance right there. And we also used avian spikes on anything that I could try and get the spikes onto, just again to prevent any avian perching. The biggest takeaway is we did not see any avoidance from the plovers, which is very important. You can see their natural adults, their normal adult switching behavior on the photo on the right. One's leaving the nest as the other one's coming to the nest to incubate eggs, so that's good. So insight on the different camera systems was gained, and the data they recorded helped us determine the predator species present at the nest, identify the cause of nest and early brood failures, and then also understand which predators pose the highest risk to tern and plover productivity. So for this season specifically, we captured a total of 35 unique predator presence events at the nest. So, and these events were separated by 24 hours. So of these events, 20 were registers of potential predators, and then 15 were actual predation events that occurred at those nests. So registers are represented in that navy color, and then predation events are in red. So of those predation events, 14 were from great horned owls and 1 from an American crow. So great horned owls alone were responsible for predating 9 tern eggs, 37 plover eggs, and 5 plover chicks. The American crow was responsible for predating 4 plover eggs. And all predation events were caused by avian predators and no mammalian predators. So although we had several predation events, we had several successful nests. So with this table, you can see the comparison of nests with and without cameras. So a total of 102 nests were monitored by outside observers at the 6 off-channel nesting sites that received nest camera monitoring. So 46 of those nests did not receive cameras, and of those nests, 30 were successful and 16 failed. 56 nests did receive nest cameras, and of those nests, 36 were successful and 20 failed. I would like to point out that we did not see a major difference in the nest fates for nests that did and did not receive camera monitoring, which is a good thing to see. So because of these nest cameras, we were able to see specific predatory behavior. So with that, we noticed most great horned owl predations occurred later during the incubation stage. So this figure just kind of represents when predation occurred based on the incubation day. So the predator species responsible for predation are listed there on the left-hand side, which was the American crow and great horned owl. And the days of incubation are shown at the bottom. And the frequency of the predation events are represented on that plot. So red is representing tern eggs and blue represents yellow represents the plover eggs and chicks. I want to point out that the incubation days for piping plovers extended past 28 days just to represent predation on newly hatched chicks that occurred while they were still present in the nest bowl. So the owl's timing of predation may indicate that they possibly might prefer predating eggs that are more developed. So some owl behavior observed on camera may indicate that they prefer eggs that are more developed as well. So in this video, you can see the eggs are more yolk, and the owl did not seem as pleased with them compared to more developed eggs, which I'll show in the next video. So the blue circle is where the nest is located with 2 eggs, and then the yellow circles are where the newly hatched chicks are located. So, and you can hear the plovers in the background, the parents trying to get the owl away from their chicks, but it's not working too well. So again, because of these nest cameras, we were able to document this specific predatory behavior like this and predation events. So I wanted to share some of the comparisons of these 2 camera types. So trail cameras identified the predator community, registered predation events, and then also provided limited information on hatch success. The cellular video cameras did this as well, but they also documented nest failure due to weather and also helped accurately quantify both losses and hatching success. Video also provided more detailed predatory behavior, and both camera types had issues with accurate triggers and duration of videos. However, they're both pretty easy to install and low maintenance for the most part. There was no avoidance from the piping plovers or least terns. And we assume that we likely captured most predation events based on outside observer data and camera data matching up. So we will continue using both types of these cameras because they both provide important information about the nest and allow us to accurately fate nests because of the camera evidence that they provide. So PRIP is using trail cameras to test the efficacy of our predator management actions by using cameras set at the shorelines, site level, and nest level. So here's an example of the different predator monitoring methods used this season. Again, Broadfoot South is being used as an example here. So the shoreline cameras are represented in those blue markers, the site level are in orange, and then the nest level are in yellow. So the color-coded callouts represent the point of view of those monitoring efforts. We also did weekly track surveys to document predator tracks along the entire shoreline of nesting peninsulas. So an example of that is shown in green, that dotted green line. The nest camera is also documented, or so with shoreline and site level cameras, we were able to use those to document predator presence and then actual predator access to the nesting peninsula. And so nest cameras also documented predator presence, but again, provided that more specific, detailed information about predation and events that happened at the nest. So if the barriers, which like mammalian predator trapping, which I described earlier, the moat or predator fencing and panel wings, if these are effective at deterring predators, the predator community registered should become more sparse, and the number of registers and effort should decrease as you move inward across the multiple predator control barriers. So for the 2021 season, we captured several predation events and predator presence at the tern and plover nest. However, we did still have several successful nests. We did discover that great horned owls were the greatest threat to nesting terns and plovers because they were the most common predator present at the nest across all sites, and they were responsible for 94% of predation events, and most of those great horned owl predation events occurred at 2 sites. Nest cameras have provided evidence of losses due to predation by avian species, which helps us highlight the importance of using what we have learned for the development of options for addressing this threat. So we will continue using both types of cameras because they both provide important information because they have those photo video evidence. And hopefully we can have more to share with you guys as time goes on. So with that, are there any questions?